So back in May, I told you about 3 judges from Indiana who got in a brawl at a White Castle parking lot, which resulted in 2 people being shot. So that was in May. Listeners sent me an update on this yesterday. I've been sitting here waiting for an update on this story, so thank you for sending that to me. 3 Indiana judges have been temporarily suspended without pay over their involvement in a drunken brawl in a White Castle parking lot earlier this year that ended with 2 of them shot. Judges Andrew Adams, Bradley Jacobs, and Sabrina Bell were attending a judicial conference in Indianapolis in May when they gathered at a bar to drink for several hours before deciding to head to a strip club called the Red Garter. The establishment was closed, so at around 3:15 a.m., they wound up at, well, where else would you go at 3:15? But a White Castle. So while a 4th judge accompanying them went inside the restaurant, Adams, Jacobs, and Bell remained outside. During that time, a car with 2 male passengers drove by, yelled something out of the window. Bell reacted by flipping them the bird. The men rolled into the parking lot to confront the judges, who were described in court documents as being, quote, in a heavily intoxicated state. I mean, there are business trips, but you're an Indiana judge. You're only going to the state capitol, for crying out loud. You're just going to Indianapolis. It's not even like a big road trip. So they do this. They go drinking. It's 3:15 in the morning. They try to go to a strip club. The strip club is closed. All right, you realize they're partying after the strip clubs aren't even open anymore. And, well, technically they're open, but only for private parties. And then they go ahead and they get in an altercation with somebody, 2 people, in a parking lot at a White Castle by flipping people off, of all things, okay? It's a very interesting situation for a judge to find themselves in. So what do we have here? A heavily intoxicated state. Okay. NBC News reported that the confrontation ended when one of the men from the car, identified as Brandon Kaiser, pulled a gun, shot Adams once and Jacobs twice. Both judges were seriously injured and were hospitalized for several days. According to NPR, the Indiana Supreme Court was less than impressed. In an opinion posted this week, the court decided to hand down penalties to the judges, not primarily to punish a judge, but rather to preserve the integrity of and public confidence in the judicial system. Could you imagine having to go in front of one of these 3 judges with any one of your cases and have them judge you? I mean, who wants to be judged by a group of judges, or by a judge, I should say, because you only have one of them when you go and you visit. Who wants to be judged by these people who got drunk, tried to go to a strip club's closed, went to White Castle, flipped some people off, and got in an argument in a parking lot at 3:15 in the morning? Who wants to be judged by somebody like that? What else do we have here? Jacobs and Bell were both given 30 days unpaid suspensions from the bench, and Adams was handed a 60-day suspension with no pay. Adams' punishment was greater because he pled guilty to battery charges related to the incident earlier this year. Who's your pride? I just I don't know what to say. I just don't know what to say. But hey, I guess judges are people too, and if they want to go get drunk and go to a strip club and hang out with one another, who knows? Who knows how that night might have ended with the 3 of them? Also, you never know. All right, 574-25-95-95-3. That is 2595953. Federal judge has made an interesting ruling involving that ISIS bride. You remember her? So, federal judge has ruled that the 25-year-old woman born in New Jersey, who later traveled to Syria and joined ISIS, is not an American citizen. Hoda Muthana had attempted to drum up sympathy and force the U.S. to facilitate travel back to the nation where she was born for her and her 2-year-old child. The U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia judge, Reggie Walton, determined that since the terrorist-tied woman was born to a Tunisian father with diplomatic status, she was not a citizen. Of course, we told you that. We went over this case before, but she tried to make the whole argument that I was born in the United States, and that's not how it works. It doesn't extend to individuals that way. Her father previously represented Yemen in the United Nations. Federal regulations and international laws state that children of foreign diplomats born in the U.S. are not subject to the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which guarantees birthright citizenship because they are born under the jurisdiction of another country. Walton also ruled that Muthana's father could not provide financial support to his daughter and grandson, who was born in territory under ISIS control and whom he has never met, without being subject to charges of providing material support to terrorism. That's also a very interesting charge, or interesting ruling. So not only is she not a U.S. citizen, which, again, we knew, but she was still arguing that case, and there's a lot of people who wanted her to be given citizenship status so that way her kids could come to her kid could come to the United States and be raised here, even though she's a terrorist. She says she's put that all behind her, probably because all of her husbands have been killed because we keep killing ISIS people. So anyway, the other issue of this is that her dad wants to be able to financially support the child, whatever. But now the judge said, no, you can't, because we're dealing with somebody who's still in a terrorism country, and that would be material support for terrorism. Muthana had left the United States in 2014. Her child was born from her second marriage to an ISIS fighter. She left ISIS in 2018, fled to the Kurdish refugee camp. She then began doing interviews in the media calling for the U.S. to take her back. Of course, we all covered this. Let's see, I was really young and ignorant, Muthana said in an interview with The Guardian. I believe that America gives second chances, and I want to return, and I'll never come back to the Middle East. America can take my passport, and I wouldn't mind. Of course, the idea that you would bring a multi-terrorist's wife back into the United States would be absurd anyway. So she has played the victim in the media. Who is writing this article? This is Cassandra Fairbanks, who we've had on the show before. Though Muthana has played victim in the media, she was one of the most militant ISIS recruiters on social media. She urged American Muslims to kill citizens in drive-by shootings and vehicular attacks and called to assassinate then-President Barack Obama, according to media reports. So she's not a U.S. citizen. She can't come back, and her dad is not allowed to give her kid financial support without being labeled as somebody who contributes to terrorism. So very interesting rulings coming out of the District of Columbia on that. Okay, we'll talk about impeachment next on Newstalk 95.3, Michiana's news channel.